The first time my roommate slid both hands under my shirt, our kitchen was dark, the heat was broken, and I was holding a wooden spoon like it could defend my dignity. "Brooke, don't move," she whispered, her palms pressed against my stomach, cold enough to make every muscle in my body lock. I was 25 years old, supposedly a competent adult, and employed as a physical therapist at a sports clinic. I had helped professional athletes walk again after surgery. But when Brooke Lawson looked up at me in the blue glow of the battery lantern and said, "My hands were freezing," I forgot how breathing worked. "That is not a recognized medical treatment," I managed. "It is for me. You have pockets. They're not body temperature. You have your own body." She smiled. "Yours runs warmer." That was the problem with Brooke. She said things like that in a voice so calm I could never tell whether she was flirting or simply trying to shorten my life. She'd moved into the second bedroom 8 months earlier after my former roommate left Denver for a job in Phoenix. Brooke was 24, worked as an illustrator for a children's publishing company, and had answered my housing post with 3 questions. Was the building quiet? Did I own a blender? And was I one of those men who believed plates needed to soak for 48 business hours? I told her the building was mostly quiet, my blender was emotionally unstable, and I washed plates immediately because I'd been raised under strict supervision. She moved in the following Saturday. By the end of her first month, she had drawn tiny, judgmental faces on every item in our refrigerator. The mustard looked disappointed in me. The eggs appeared to be planning an escape. A carton of milk once informed me, in Brooke's handwriting, that its expiration date was not a fun, personal challenge. Living with her was easy in all the dangerous ways. She made coffee before I woke up. I fixed the loose wheel on her desk chair. We watched terrible home renovation shows and argued over whether knocking down every interior wall counted as design. She knew I hated raisins and bought cinnamon rolls without them. I knew she got quiet when work overwhelmed her and left grilled cheese outside her bedroom without asking questions. We weren't dating. We had never kissed. And until that freezing Thursday night, neither of us had put our hands underneath the other person's clothing. For context, the boiler had stopped working during the coldest week of January. Our landlord promised a repair crew by morning, which was apparently landlord language for, "I hope you own several blankets and a forgiving personality." Brooke came home through the snow wearing a charcoal wool coat, a cream sweater, and an expression that suggested winter had insulted her family. "I can't feel my fingers," she announced. I was making tomato soup on our gas stove because the electricity had flickered twice, and warm food seemed like the only useful contribution I could make. "There are gloves in the basket by the door." I wore them. Then I questioned their commitment. She kicked off her boots and walked straight toward me. I noticed the look in her eyes about half a second too late. "Brooke, no. My hands are dying. Warm them over the stove. That sounds medically irresponsible. You're asking to use my abdomen as a heating pad." "Yes, but you're licensed." Then the lights went out. The refrigerator stopped humming. The little radio on the counter died mid-song. Wind rattled the old windows, and the apartment fell into the kind of silence that makes you suddenly aware of another person's breathing. I reached for the battery lantern. Brooke reached for me. Her hand slipped beneath the hem of my t-shirt before I could object. Her fingers spread over my bare stomach, and I sucked in a breath so sharply she laughed. "Oh, stop. You've survived worse." "Not recently." She stood close enough that the front of her sweater brushed my chest. Snowmelt still clung to a strand of dark hair near her cheek. She smelled like cold air and the vanilla hand cream she kept beside the sink, but apparently had not trusted to solve this particular emergency. Her smile faded just a little. That was when the joke changed. Her thumbs moved once against my skin. Not accidental, not exactly innocent. I looked down at her. "Your hands are getting warmer." "Maybe. You can take them out now." "I could." Neither of us moved. There are moments when an entire relationship seems to balance on one stupid breath. I wanted to place my hands on her waist. I wanted to ask whether she knew what she was doing. Mostly, I wanted to stop pretending I hadn't been attracted to her since the day she stood in my living room, looked at my empty bookshelf, and said, "This is either minimalism or a cry for help." But I'd lived with a girlfriend once before. When that relationship ended, I lost the woman, the apartment, half our mutual friends, and a perfectly good cast iron skillet. I had promised myself I would never again build romance and rent payments on the same foundation. Brooke knew that story. She also knew I had gone on exactly 2 dates since she moved in, both of which ended before dessert. Her fingers flexed lightly against me. "You're staring," she said. "You're inside my shirt." Those things can both be true. I laughed, but it came out rougher than I intended. Something shifted in her expression. For once, Brooke looked uncertain. Then the power returned. The kitchen flooded with light. The refrigerator coughed back to life and the radio resumed playing as though it hadn't just abandoned us at a critical moment. Brooke pulled her hands away so quickly she nearly caught one in my shirt. "There," she said, stepping back. "Circulation restored. Congratulations." "Thank you, I was very brave." She turned toward the stove, but I saw the color rising along her neck. I should have let it go. Instead, I touched her wrist. She stopped. "Was that really about cold hands?" Her eyes lifted to mine, and for 3 full seconds, the woman who always had an answer gave me nothing. Then the soup boiled over. Brooke grabbed a towel. I moved the pot. We bumped shoulders, blamed each other, and spent the next minute cleaning the stove with the frantic concentration of 2 people avoiding a much bigger mess. We ate on the living room floor because it was warmer near the space heater. Brooke wrapped herself in a rust-colored blanket, and I sat beside her with our bowls balanced on an old board game box. It felt uncomfortably like a date. Not because of candles or music. We had neither. It was the way her knee rested against mine beneath the blanket. The way she stole the last corner of my grilled cheese without asking. The way neither of us mentioned moving apart. "You know," she said, "most people would charge extra for emergency torso access. Most people establish consent before trespassing. I heard you say no. That is not helping your defense. You said it before I did it. Once it happened, you became remarkably less articulate." I turned toward her. "You notice that?" Her teasing expression softened. "I notice a lot about you, Miles." There it was again. That change in temperature no broken boiler could explain. Before I could answer, her phone lit up on the floor between us. A message preview appeared from her older sister, Dana. "Did you finally tell him, or did you just put your hands under his shirt and hope he figured it out?" Brooke snatched up the phone. Too late. I stared at her. She stared back, the blanket clutched beneath her chin. "Tell me what?" I asked. She closed her eyes for 1 second, then opened them. "My hands weren't that cold, Miles. My hands weren't that cold, Miles." Brooke's confession hung between us. The space heater clicked. Snow tapped the windows. On television, a couple silently celebrated the destruction of a load-bearing wall. I set my empty bowl aside. "How not cold?" She lowered the blanket. "Is there a scale?" "There is now." "Fine, they were maybe 20% cold." "And the remaining 80%? She looked down at her phone. Poor judgment. "Brooke." "Attraction," she said quickly. "The other 80% was attraction." My heart gave one hard beat. She glanced at me and immediately looked away. "There. Now you know." "How long?" "Does that matter?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I need to know whether I've been oblivious for a week or catastrophically stupid for months." That earned the faintest smile. "Catastrophically stupid," she said. "How many months?" She drew her knees up beneath the blanket. 7. "You moved in 8 months ago. I needed time to decide whether you were attractive or whether I just appreciated access to a dishwasher. And the dishwasher is very compelling." I waited. Brooke exhaled, then met my eyes. The humor was still there, but it wasn't protecting her as well now. "And then you stayed up until 2 in the morning helping me rebuild my portfolio after my laptop crashed. You made color-coded folders even though you're visibly frightened by art. That was when it got bad." "I'm not frightened by art." "You called my watercolor fox the orange dog." "It lacked context. It had a tail." So do some dogs. She laughed, but the sound caught at the end. This is why I didn't tell you. Because I can't identify woodland animals? Because I like this. Her gaze moved around the living room to our mismatched furniture, the leaning stack of board games, the two mugs on the coffee table that neither of us ever put away. Us, she continued, coming home and knowing you'll be here, fighting about the thermostat, watching terrible television. I didn't want to say something and lose all of it. I understood that fear too well. My last relationship hadn't ended with one explosive betrayal. It had decayed through small resentments until every room in our apartment felt contested. By the final month, my ex and I communicated through notes on the refrigerator and slept with our backs to each other. Home had stopped being somewhere I rested. Brooke had made it that again. I don't want to lose this either, I said. Her face tightened almost imperceptibly. That sounds like the beginning of a rejection. It isn't. Then you may want to adjust your delivery. I reached across the space between us and took her phone from her hand. She let me set it aside. I'm trying to say this without making a mess. Miles, I put my hands under your shirt and got exposed by a message from my sister. The mess has achieved independence. I like you. She went still. Not just as my roommate, I added. Not just because you buy the right cinnamon rolls. I think about you when I'm at work. I hear something funny and save it because I want to tell you first. I know which floorboard you step over when you can't sleep because it creaks. And I know you hum when you draw, even though you insist you don't. Brooke's eyes shone, and that nearly undid me. I haven't gone on a third date with anyone, I said, because every time I'm sitting across from someone else, I'm wishing I were home with you. Those dates ended before dessert. I know. So, I outrank cake? Certain cakes. She leaned closer. Be careful. You're ruining a very good confession. I smiled, but my nerves pulled tight when her gaze dropped to my mouth. I wanted to kiss her. Every part of me had already decided, except the part that remembered packing boxes after my last breakup. Brooke noticed my hesitation. Of course she did. You're afraid, she said. That obvious? To me. I ran a hand over the back of my neck. If we do this and it goes badly, it doesn't just cost us a few awkward dates. One of us loses our home. True. And you still want to? Yes. No pause, no joke. She shifted onto her knees in front of me, the blanket falling around her waist. I'm not asking you to promise that nothing will go wrong, she said. I'm asking whether you want me enough to find out. The directness of it stole every careful argument I had prepared. I touched her cheek. Her skin was warm now? Yes. Her eyes closed briefly against my palm. Yes, you want to find out? She whispered. Yes, I want you. Brooke kissed me before I could overthink it. Her hand caught the front of my shirt, pulling me toward her. My other hand settled at her waist, and the entire shape of our friendship changed in a breath. The kiss was soft for approximately 2 seconds. Then she shifted closer. My restraint vanished, and I kissed her the way I had tried not to imagine for months. Her fingers slid into my hair. The blanket tangled around our legs. I tasted tomato soup and peppermint lip balm, and heard a small sound in her throat that made me forget every sensible rule I had ever created. When we finally separated, her forehead rested against mine. Well, she whispered. That seemed above 20%. 75, maybe. Liar. Prove it. I kissed her again. This time was slower, no surprise, no rush. Just the deliberate discovery of how she fit against me. My thumb traced the edge of her jaw. Her lips curved beneath mine when I pulled her closer. For once, I wasn't thinking about what could break. I was thinking about choosing her. When we drew apart, she stayed tucked against my chest. The renovation show ended, but neither of us reached for the remote. We should go on a date, I said. Brooke tilted her head. We've eaten dinner together hundreds of times. A real date outside this apartment. With shoes? Probably. That feels formal. Tomorrow night. She pretended to consider it. Will there be cake? If you behave. I don't want cake under those conditions. I laughed and kissed her temple. We sat together until the apartment warmed, talking with the strange, relieved honesty of people who had finally opened a door they'd both been leaning against. She told me Dana had known for months. Apparently, my name came up so often during their calls that her sister had begun referring to me as the situation. I admitted my coworker had stopped believing Brooke and I were only roommates after she brought me homemade lunch 3 days in a row. That was leftover pasta, she protested. It had a handwritten note. It said not to microwave the metal fork. You drew a heart. That was an anatomical warning. Near midnight, I stood and offered her my hand. Brooke took it, but instead of getting up, she tugged me down for one more kiss. Tomorrow, she murmured against my mouth. 7? 6:30, I'm hungry. I helped her stand. For a moment, we remained close in the hallway where our bedrooms waited on opposite sides. It would have been easy to ask her into mine. I wanted to. She must have seen it because her fingers slipped through mine. Not tonight, she said softly. Okay. I want tonight to be about this. She kissed me once, brief and certain. Me choosing you, she said. Then she let go and walked to her room. I stood in the hallway smiling like an idiot until her door opened again. Brooke leaned out. Before tomorrow, there's something you should know. My smile faded at her expression. What? She disappeared into her room, returned with a white envelope, and handed it to me. The logo of our property management company was printed in the corner. I requested a lease change 3 weeks ago, she said. I pulled out the document. Brooke's name had been approved for removal at the end of the month. I looked up. You're moving out? Her fingers tightened around the edge of her door. I was going to tell you tonight, she said, right after I told you why. I was going to tell you tonight, Brooke said, right after I told you why. I held the lease document between us. You've already found another place? My sister's building has a studio opening next month. It's 15 minutes away. Why didn't you say anything? Because I hadn't decided whether I could actually go through with it. You filed paperwork. I needed an option. The warmth left by our kisses faded under a colder realization. While I had been quietly wanting her and congratulating myself for protecting our friendship, Brooke had been preparing to leave. Was living with me that bad? Her expression changed immediately. No. Then help me understand. She stepped into the hallway and closed her bedroom door behind her. Every day, I came home to the person I wanted, she said. You'd smile at me, make dinner with me, sit close to me on the couch, and then you'd go across the hall. I swallowed. At first it was manageable, she continued. Then you started dating. 2 dates. I didn't know there wouldn't be more. I'd watch you leave and wonder whether you'd come back excited about someone, or whether one night you wouldn't come back at all. Brooke, I knew I had no right to be jealous. That made it worse. She folded her arms, but she wasn't angry. She looked exposed. So I decided one of 2 things had to happen. Either I told you and you felt the same, or I moved somewhere I could stop pretending this was enough. I looked at the paper again. You were leaving either way? If you didn't want me, yes. And if I did? She hesitated. I hadn't worked that part out. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Not your usual level of planning. I put my hands under your shirt as a confession. Clearly, the strategy phase had deteriorated. I set the document on the narrow hallway table. Do you still want to move? I don't know. I don't want you to. The answer came too quickly to hide. Brooke searched my face. Because we're dating now? Because I want you here. That isn't quite the same answer. It is to me. That's what scares me. I took a step back. What does that mean? She glanced toward my bedroom, then hers. You already associate living together with a relationship failing, she said. If I stay and this becomes serious, how long before you start waiting for everything to go wrong? I'm not my last relationship. I know. And you're not my ex. I know that too. But 5 minutes ago, fear almost stopped you from kissing me. Her words landed because they were true. She moved closer and touched the hem of my shirt, smoothing a wrinkle she had made earlier. I want us to have a chance, she said softly. A real one. Not something we fall into because we share a couch and a grocery bill. You think moving out gives us that? I think it means every time you come to see me, I'll know you chose to. I caught her hand before she could pull away. I choose you now. I believe you. But, but tomorrow is our first date, Miles. I don't want either of us making a permanent decision tonight. Reasonable, mature, deeply irritating. Fine, I said. We'll go on the date. Her mouth curved. Try to contain your enthusiasm. I'm extremely enthusiastic. You look like you're about to challenge the lease agreement to a duel. It knows what it did. She stepped close and kissed the corner of my mouth. Good night. That's all I get? You get the rest tomorrow if you impress me. You've already been inside my shirt. And now you have something to aspire to. She slipped into her room and shut the door. I lay awake for a long time. Not because I regretted kissing her, because I wanted to do it again, and because 20 feet of hallway suddenly felt like an unreasonable distance. At 6:25 the next evening, I knocked on Brooke's bedroom door. She opened it wearing a dark green dress, black boots, and small gold earrings I'd never seen before. For several seconds, I forgot I had lived with this woman for 8 months. She leaned against the doorframe. That good? I'm reconsidering every baggy sweatshirt you own. They're comfortable. They're deceptive. Her gaze traveled over my button-down shirt and dark coat. You clean up well too, she said, almost suspiciously well. I had assistance. From whom? A nurse at work who told me the blue shirt made me look emotionally available. Brooke laughed. Did you explain that's false advertising? I'm working on it. I offered her my hand. She stared at it. What? We're walking 12 feet to the front door. It's a date. So? So I'm trying to be romantic. Her expression softened as she slid her fingers through mine. Then keep trying. We went to a used bookstore downtown that stayed open late and served coffee in the back. Brooke disappeared into the art section while I searched for a book about foxes. When I found her, she was flipping through a collection of fairy tale illustrations. I held up my selection. Field Guide. To North American Wildlife? I'm educating myself. Show me a fox. I opened to a marked page and pointed. That's a coyote. I checked the caption. She laughed so loudly the clerk looked over. You planned that, I accused. I hoped. It's better. We wandered for an hour. She chose a mystery novel for me because she said my bookshelves needed evidence of a pulse. I bought her an illustrated edition of a story she'd loved as a child. At the register, she saw me paying for it. Miles, you don't have to. I know. That stopped her. Outside, snow had begun falling again, not heavy, just enough to soften the streetlights. We walked to a diner around the corner with red vinyl booths and terrible coffee. Over burgers and chocolate cake, we talked about things we somehow hadn't covered in 8 months of shared breakfasts. She told me she had wanted to illustrate children's books since her elementary school art teacher framed one of her drawings. I told her I became a physical therapist after my father's accident, because I'd watched someone help him recover the parts of his life he thought were gone. When I mentioned my ex, Brooke didn't look away. I thought moving in together would prove we were serious, I said. Then when it ended, I felt stupid for not seeing the problem sooner. Were there problems before you moved in? Yes. And are those problems here? I looked across the table at her. No. Then maybe the apartment wasn't what broke you. No, I admitted. It was just easier to blame the apartment. Under the table, her boot touched mine. I don't need you to be fearless, she said. I need you to be honest when you're afraid. I can do that. You say that now. Wait until I make you watch me carry a sofa down 3 flights of stairs. My chest tightened. So you've decided to move? I've decided not to decide tonight. Reasonable. You hate it. I hate it. She smiled and pushed the last bite of cake toward me. I pushed it back. Brooke narrowed her eyes. Is this a test? It's your cake. And I like you more than cake. Her face went still. I'd intended it as a joke. It didn't feel like one after I said it. Brooke picked up her fork and divided the bite in half. Then we share. By the time we returned home, snow dusted her hair and shoulders. We stood inside the apartment door while the radiator hissed uselessly. "So," she said, "was that a real enough date?" "I wore the emotionally available shirt." "You did." "I bought a book." "Heroic." "And I surrendered cake." Her arms circled my neck. "That was when I knew you were serious." I slid my hands around her waist. "Do I get the rest now?" "Maybe." I kissed her. Brooke rose onto her toes and kissed me back, slow at first, then with an urgency that drove me against the closed door. My hand spread across her back. Her fingers slipped beneath my coat, gripping my shirt as if she needed to keep me close. "I've wanted this for so long," she whispered against my mouth. "Me too." "How long?" "7 months." She pulled back. "You said nothing for 7 months?" "I was being responsible." "You were being an idiot." "That too." She kissed me again, but when I tried to draw her closer, she stopped. Her forehead rested against mine. Her breathing was unsteady. "What?" I asked. Brooke closed her eyes. "I need to be honest when I'm afraid too." My hands tightened gently at her waist. "Okay." She opened her eyes and there was no teasing left in them. "I'm not just attracted to you," she said, "and I'm not trying to see whether I could fall for you." My heart began pounding. She touched my cheek. "I already did, Miles." A breath passed, then another. "I'm in love with you." "I'm in love with you." Brooke's hand remained against my cheek. I knew the correct answer. 3 short words stood waiting between us, but she deserved the truth, not an echo. "I care about you more than I've let myself admit," I said carefully. Pain flickered across her face. I felt her arms loosen around my neck. "Brooke, don't." She stepped back. "Don't say it because you think I need to hear it." "I wasn't going to." "I know." She folded her arms over herself. "That's why I stopped you." I hated the distance she'd put between us, even though it was less than a foot. "You surprised me." "I surprised myself." "How long have you known?" "Since you went on your second date." "With Lauren?" I didn't remember her name on purpose. Despite the tension, I almost smiled. Brooke looked toward the hallway. "You left wearing that gray sweater. I sat here trying to draw, and all I could think about was some woman seeing you in it and deciding to keep you. I came home before 10. Exactly. You walked in, saw me on the couch, and looked relieved. I was relieved. Then you made popcorn and spent 2 hours making fun of a movie with me. And I realized this wasn't a crush anymore." I reached for her hand. She allowed me to take it, but her fingers stayed still in mine. "I'm not rejecting you," I said. "I know. I want this. I know that too. But you're hurt." She gave me a tired smile. "I'm standing in the place where I live, telling my roommate I love him after one date." I understood there might be some emotional turbulence. "It wasn't only one date." "No? We've been having unofficial dates for months." "Takeout on the floor doesn't count." "It does when you steal my food and spend 3 hours talking to me." "By that logic, we're already married." Something warm moved through me at the word, followed immediately by fear. Brooke saw both. "That?" she said softly. "That's what I mean." "What?" "You want me and then you get frightened by what wanting me could become." "I'm trying not to ruin it." "Miles, you can ruin something by holding it too tightly too." I looked down at our joined hands. She was right. I'd spent months treating my fear like wisdom. Now she had offered me the most vulnerable part of herself, and my first instinct had been to examine it for structural weakness. "I don't know if I'm ready to say I love you," I admitted, "but I know I don't want to go backward." Brooke's fingers finally curled around mine. "Neither do I. I want tomorrow, and the day after that." "That sounds dangerously like planning." "I'll make a spreadsheet." "Then I'm moving out tonight." I tugged her closer. This time, she came willingly. "I'm sorry I can't say it yet." Her gaze held mine. "I'd rather wait for the truth." I touched my forehead to hers. "You really love me." She sighed. "Unfortunately." "That seems rude." "You leave cabinet doors open." "I'm tall. They're not a threat to me." You also snore when you sleep on your back. How would you know? She froze. I raised an eyebrow. The walls are thin, she said. Your room is across the hall. Very thin. I kissed her before she could invent worse evidence. It wasn't as urgent as the kiss against the door. It was gentler, threaded with the ache of what I couldn't say yet. Brooke's palm slid over my chest, then rested above my heart. When we separated, she glanced down the hallway. Do you want to sleep in my room? I asked. Her eyes returned to mine. Sleep? Just sleep. You're voluntarily inviting me to hear you snore? I'm disputing the allegation through direct observation. She smiled. Okay. That night, Brooke wore one of my t-shirts and curled against me beneath the blankets. Nothing happened beyond kisses, quiet conversation, and the slow discovery that she fit against my side as if we had practiced. Around 2, I woke to find her asleep with one cold hand under my shirt. I covered it with mine and went back to sleep. The next 2 weeks were the best and worst kind of strange. Brooke and I became a couple in the same apartment where we had spent months pretending not to want each other. She kissed me while coffee brewed. I met her outside her office for lunch. We went bowling, where she cheated badly and lost honestly. She came to the clinic one evening and waited while I finished paperwork, drawing miniature portraits of my coworkers on sticky notes. I introduced her as my girlfriend. The word made her look at me with such open happiness that I said it twice more than necessary. At home, the changes were smaller. Her toothbrush moved from the cup beside mine to my side of the sink. We began falling asleep together more often than apart. Some mornings I woke before her and lay still, memorizing the weight of her head on my shoulder. I kept waiting for closeness to feel like a trap. It never did. But the approved lease change remained on the hallway table. One Friday evening, I found Brooke sealing a box in her bedroom. My chest tightened. You're moving. She pressed down the tape. Next Saturday. You decided without telling me? I decided this morning. Why? She sat on the edge of her bed. Most of the art had already come off the walls, leaving pale rectangles behind. Because every day I stay, it gets harder to separate what's convenient from what's real. This feels real to me. It does to me, too. Then stay. Brooke looked up. Why? Because I want you here. I know, but you wanted me here before we started dating. That doesn't make it less true. No, but I need my own door for a while. I need to know you'll still walk through it when you don't have to. Frustration rose in me. You're creating a test. I'm creating a choice. I already chose you. And I believe that. But you still look at this apartment like it has the power to decide whether we succeed. I glanced around her half-packed room. You think leaving fixes that? No, I think you do. The answer silenced me. Brooke stood and came closer. I'm not breaking up with you, she said. It feels like you're leaving. I'm moving 15 minutes away. That doesn't mean it won't feel empty. She touched my jaw. Missing me isn't the same as losing me. I closed my eyes and leaned into her palm. Stay tonight, I said. I'm still on the lease for 8 more days. No, stay with me. Her thumb traced my cheek. I choose you tonight, she said. Tomorrow too. I kissed her and tried to believe tomorrow would be enough. On moving day, Dana arrived with a rented van and the efficiency of someone who had relocated 3 times in 4 years. She was a shorter, louder version of Brooke. So, you're the situation, she said when we met. I've heard. Good. Then the humiliation phase is complete. Brooke carried a lamp past us. Dana, stop interrogating my boyfriend and help. My boyfriend. Even with half the apartment boxed up, the word steadied me. I spent the next 4 hours carrying Brooke's life down 3 flights of stairs. Every box that left made her room less recognizable. By late afternoon, only dust and a few scraps of packing tape remained. Brooke stood with me by the front door, her old key in her palm. You can keep it, I said. I have one for the new place. I mean, keep this one. Her fingers closed around the key. Okay. Dinner tomorrow. 7. 6:30, I'm hungry. She smiled, but her eyes were wet. I pulled her against me. I'm gonna miss you, I whispered into her hair. You'd better. She kissed me slowly, then rose onto her toes and whispered, Keep choosing me. I will. After she left, the apartment was silent. I wandered into her empty bedroom. On the floor where her desk had been lay a flat package wrapped in brown paper. My name was written across it. Inside was a framed illustration of our kitchen during the blackout. She had drawn me at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, looking startled. Herself stood in front of me with both hands under my shirt and a mischievous smile on her face. At the bottom, she had written, Home was never the apartment. A folded note was taped to the back. Miles, don't tell me you love me because this room is empty. Tell me when you know. Brooke, I read it twice. Then I looked at the drawing, at the way she had painted the lantern light between us, and thought about every ordinary morning she had turned into something I missed before it was even over. The empty room wasn't what hurt. I loved her, and I finally knew exactly how to tell her. The first thing I did was put Brooke's picture on the kitchen wall. The second was text her. Are you home? 3 dots appeared. I just moved. Where else would I be? I grabbed my coat. Her new building was 15 minutes away in good weather and 25 in falling snow. By the time I reached it, my hair was wet, my fingers were numb, and everything I'd rehearsed in the car sounded inadequate. Brooke opened the door wearing black leggings, thick socks, and one of my old college sweatshirts. Boxes filled the studio behind her. A lamp sat on the floor. Her mattress was still wrapped in plastic, and takeaway cartons covered the narrow counter. She looked from me to the snow gathering on my shoulders. Dinner is tomorrow. I know. Did something happen? Yes. Her expression tightened. What? My hands are freezing. For 1 second, she only stared at me. Then understanding softened her face. You have pockets, she said. They're not body temperature. You have your own body. Yours runs warmer. Brooke bit back a smile. That line sounds familiar. I borrowed it from someone catastrophically reckless. Did it work for her? It changed my life. I stepped closer, but I didn't touch her. May I? Her eyes warmed. She took my hands and guided them beneath the hem of her sweatshirt. My palms settled against her waist. Her skin was warm, and she shivered anyway. That is extremely cold, she whispered. I drove over with the windows down. You're an idiot. I've been told. Her hands rested on my chest. Why are you here, Miles? Because you asked me not to say it just because your room was empty? She searched my face. The room is empty, I continued, but that isn't why I know. I know because I put your drawing in the kitchen, and suddenly I could see what you'd been trying to tell me. What was that? That home isn't a place you can lose in a breakup. Something you build with a person. Her lips parted, but I kept going. I love you because you challenge me when I'm hiding behind fear. Because you notice everything and still choose me. Because you make ordinary nights feel like somewhere I want to stay. Brooke's eyes filled. I loved you before you moved out, I said. I was just too afraid of losing you to recognize that fear for what it was. A tear escaped down her cheek. I pulled one hand from beneath her sweatshirt and brushed it away. I don't want you to move back tomorrow, I said. She blinked. You don't? I want to come here. I want you to come to me. I want us to choose every dinner, every morning, every inconvenient drive through the snow. And someday, if we decide to live together again, I want that to be a choice too. Her fingers curled into my coat. You've thought about this. I had 25 minutes. Usually that leads to poor decisions. Not this time. A smile trembled across her mouth. I love you, Brooke. She closed her eyes as if she had been holding her breath for weeks. Could you say it again? I love you. Once more, I've been waiting 7 months. I love you. She kissed me. I slid both arms around her and lifted her off the floor. She laughed against my mouth, her legs tangling with mine while I carried her 3 unsteady steps into the apartment. My heel struck a box. Something ceramic rattled. Brooke pulled back. Careful, that's the good mug. Which one? The fox. The orange dog? She gasped. Get out! You're holding on to me. Only because you appear emotionally available. I kissed her again, and she forgot to evict me. Later, we ate cold noodles on the floor because neither of us remembered to reheat them. Brooke sat between my legs, leaning back against my chest while snow gathered outside her new window. Do you regret moving? I asked. No. The answer surprised me less than I expected. She turned in my arms. I needed to do it, she said, and you needed to let me. I didn't exactly let you, I complained extensively. That's your love language. My love language is grilled cheese. I thought it was spreadsheets. That's commitment. She kissed my jaw. I'm glad you came, she said. I'll keep coming. You say that now. Wait until you have to park here on street cleaning day. I'm in love. I'm not incapable of resentment. She laughed and tucked her cold feet beneath my legs. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a promise I might fail to keep. It felt like something we could choose one day at a time. And we did. For 7 months, we dated from separate addresses. I learned which window of Brooke's studio caught the morning sun. She kept coffee at her place, even though she preferred tea, and I kept drawing paper at mine, even though my foxes continued to look like suspicious dogs. We argued twice. Once about canceled plans and once about whether silence counted as communication. Neither argument ended with packed bags. We stayed, apologized, and learned that conflict didn't have to mean collapse. The following autumn, we started looking for a new apartment together. Not hers, not mine, ours. We chose one with big windows for her drawing desk, a second bedroom for guests, and a kitchen large enough for 2 people to bump into each other without spilling soup. Before we signed the lease, Brooke made me stand in every room and say out loud why I wanted to live with her. You're enjoying this, I said, deeply. In the kitchen, I want to live with you because you're the only person I trust near my grilled cheese. Romantic? In the bedroom, I want to live with you because waking up beside you is my favorite part of the day. Better. In the living room, I want to live with you because I love you. She kissed me before I could finish. A year after we moved in, Denver disappeared beneath the first snow of December. Our boiler worked perfectly. Brooke still walked into the kitchen rubbing her hands together. Freezing? I asked. Near death. You have pockets. She slipped one hand into the pocket of my coat, which hung over a chair. Her fingers found the small velvet box I had placed there that morning. Brooke went completely still. I took the box from her, lowered myself onto one knee, and opened it. For once, she had no joke ready. Only tears, a trembling smile, and both hands reaching for me before I even finished asking. Yes, she said. Obviously yes. I stood, and she threw her arms around my neck. I kissed my fiancé in the warm kitchen of the home we had chosen together. Then she slid both hands beneath my shirt. What? She whispered when I flinched. They're freezing. What would you have done if your roommate had slid her freezing hands under your shirt instead of admitting she liked you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.